U.S. and China reach agreement to ease export controls after London trade talks. June 11, 2025, London. The United States and China have agreed in principle on a framework to ease export controls, marking a significant step toward reducing trade tensions between the world's two largest economies. The agreement was reached after 2 days of negotiations in London, aimed at implementing a broader trade truce. Both countries' officials described the talks as productive, following up on earlier discussions held in Geneva and a phone call between U.S. and Chinese leaders last week. Chinese trade negotiator Li Chenggang confirmed the deal to reporters, stating that both sides had reached consensus on a framework to implement previous agreements. The news was reported by Chinese state broadcaster CGTN. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick echoed the announcement in a separate briefing, noting that the framework will now be presented to leaders in Washington and Beijing for final approval. If that is approved, we will then implement the framework, Lutnick said, according to Reuters. The proposed measures are expected to ease export restrictions that have raised concerns across global supply chains and manufacturing sectors. Further details of the framework have not yet been made public. The agreement signals a potential thaw in the long-standing trade dispute that has seen tariffs, sanctions, and regulatory hurdles impact companies on both sides of the Pacific. Greta Thunberg departs Israel after detention aboard Gaza-bound aid ship. June 11, 2025, Tel Aviv/Paris. Swedish climate and human rights activist Greta Thunberg departed Israel on Tuesday, boarding a flight to France after being detained by Israeli authorities during an attempted aid mission to Gaza. Thunberg, 22, was among 12 international activists aboard the Madeleine, a vessel organized by the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, FFC, which sought to break Israel's blockade of Gaza by delivering humanitarian aid. The ship was intercepted by the Israeli military early Monday and brought to the port of Ashdod later that evening. Greta Thunberg just departed Israel on a flight to Sweden via France. Israel's foreign ministry confirmed in a post on X, sharing photos of the activist on board a commercial flight. Thunberg, who famously avoids air travel due to environmental concerns, was one of 4 activists released and allowed to leave the country. Alongside her were 2 French citizens and 1 Spanish national. 8 other activists remain in Israeli custody, including Rima Hassan, a French member of the European Parliament. Hassan, along with detainees from Turkey, the Netherlands, France, Brazil, and Germany, is currently being held at Given Prison in Ramla, central Israel, according to the legal rights group Adala, which is representing several of the activists. The president of the European Parliament has been in constant contact with Israeli authorities to ensure the safety and security of Rima Hassan and all those accompanying her, said Parliament spokesperson Delphine Collard. France's Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot stated that 5 of the 6 detained French nationals had refused voluntary departure and would be deported following consultations with French consular officials. Israel's foreign ministry has warned that those refusing to sign deportation papers will be brought before judicial authorities. The Freedom Flotilla Coalition accused Israel of unlawfully boarding the vessel in international waters and using force against unarmed humanitarian workers. Amnesty International echoed those concerns, calling the interception a violation of international law and endangerment of civilians. The operation of intercepting and blocking the Madeleine in the middle of the night and in international waters violates international law and put the safety of those on the boat at risk, said Agnes Callamard, Amnesty International's Secretary General. In a statement to CNN, Israel defended the interception, citing security concerns. Israel is preventing the entry of all vessels into Gaza Strip in accordance with international law. The Madeleine's mission comes amid a devastating humanitarian crisis in Gaza. After more than 600 days of war and an 11-week total blockade that began on March 2nd, over 2 million residents of the enclave face extreme shortages of food, medicine, and basic supplies. Israel has characterized the vessel as a publicity stunt, calling it a selfie yacht and dismissing the activists aboard as celebrities. The Freedom Flotilla Coalition, however, maintains that the mission aimed to draw global attention to the worsening situation in Gaza and challenge what it calls an illegal siege. L.A. mayor imposes curfew amid protests over Trump immigration crackdown. June 11, 2025, Los Angeles. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass has imposed a nighttime curfew in a portion of downtown Los Angeles in response to growing unrest sparked by protests against President Donald Trump's latest immigration enforcement measures. The curfew, announced Tuesday, covers a 1 square mile, 2.6 square kilometers, area of downtown and will be in effect from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., 3 to 1300 hours Greenwich Mean Time Wednesday. Officials said the measure is aimed at curbing escalating violence and property damage in the heart of the city. Many businesses have now been affected or vandalized. Last night, there were 23 businesses that were looted, and I think if you drive through downtown L.A., the graffiti is everywhere and has caused significant damage, Bass said during a press briefing. The mayor urged residents to avoid the area unless absolutely necessary and warned that law enforcement would strictly enforce the curfew. Law enforcement will arrest individuals who break the curfew, and you will be prosecuted, she said. Bass indicated the curfew could remain in place for several days depending on the situation, but emphasized that it affects only a small portion of the sprawling city, which spans more than 500 square miles, 1,300 square kilometers. The protests began earlier this week following renewed immigration raids and detentions under the Trump administration, which critics have described as a heavy-handed crackdown targeting undocumented communities. Demonstrators have gathered across the city to denounce the policy and call for an end to mass deportations. City officials said they are balancing the right to protest with the need to maintain public safety and protect businesses already struggling with economic pressures. No further arrests or injuries were reported as of Tuesday evening, but police said they remain on high alert for potential flare-ups overnight.